The actual electoral map, it boils down to three. It's Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. If Trump wins those, he's going back to the White House. Harris must win either Georgia or North Carolina. She has no other path to the White House. Last week, Trump dumped $17 million donos into North Carolina. One Tar Heel Democrat said, I like Kamala's momentum, but Trump's got the fundamentals, baby. That's what we like to see. We've got questions about what is it going to take to win. This column came out from Jonathan Martin this morning saying that the actual electoral map, all right, all this gaming out the various states, it boils down to three. It's Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. If Trump wins those, he's going back to the White House. And he's feeling pretty confident in some of those states, saying only these matter. Says if Kamala can't win Pennsylvania, well, then her only hope is a Southern strategy, and really boils down to Pennsylvania, really. Harris must win either Georgia or North Carolina. She has no other path to the White House. The election could well be determined when the polls close in the Eastern time zone. Well, yes, after all the ballots are counted and after the water main breaks are resolved. Now, this isn't to say that the other four battlegrounds, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona, shout out, aren't important. If Harris loses Pennsylvania, which her aides acknowledge is a highly challenging state because she wants to ban fracking, even though she's lying about it, she still needs to pick up one of the two western states as well as one of the two southern states to win, so long as she picks up Michigan and Wisconsin, which I was looking, and I can't believe she's so far ahead there in some of those states. I mean, I know they've been bringing in and relocating tons of Kamala voters there, but I thought Trump won Wisconsin, and now he's going to lose it? It's interesting. Yet none of the other four battlegrounds are relevant if Trump first blocks her in Pennsylvania. Let's go Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina. It's the most obvious route for the former president and a reminder of the advantage that the Electoral College can refer on a Republican. Should Trump defeat Harris in Pennsylvania, a state that Joe Biden spent much of his childhood, it's still only won by 80,000 votes. Her hopes then hinge on a pair of slightly right of center states that Democrats have once carried once each this century. North Carolina, that Obama won in 2008, and then Georgia, which Biden stole in 2024. With Fannie Willis and State Farm Arena having an explosion there late at night. It comes down to 7 battleground states. You got to win 4 of them in order to carry it, said RNC chair. Except if you win Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, that's going to do it. Trump's television advertising reflects his focus on the trio. He spent the most in Pennsylvania, not surprising given its pivotal nature in 6 media markets, and second most in Georgia. Last week, Trump dumped $17 million donos, that's a lot of super chats, into North Carolina, a state where he had not made extensive advertising buys for the rest of the campaign. Now, with big reservations coming in for North Carolina, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a big reservation coming in next from one of the Trump super PACs. He's trying to block off her southern route. So the Trump strategy is not lost on Harris. From inference, you can see where they're thinking their bread is buttered, said Quentin Fulks, Kamala's campaign manager. If Trump's best chance to wall off Harris from 270 is clear enough to both campaigns, it's also not lost on them that Kamala at least has more options than Biden did. Before ending his campaign in July, the president was almost certainly going to depend on Great Lakes only strategy, win Wisconsin, Michigan, and then Pennsylvania. Harris, though, might have insurance in the South, and she may need it. Trump's polling, at least before last week's debate, has consistently had him leading Harris in Pennsylvania. Even when the modeling was tilted toward what one Republican called the campaign's worst case scenario, Trump's still looking good. Now, if Harris is able to make inroads in other areas with black men and moderate Republicans, then she'll do well. No accident that they spent a lot of time talking about race at the last debate, and similarly, there's a reason why Liz Cheney is coming in on this. She may deliver some other votes. So interesting dynamic. So those 3 states, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. One Tar Heel Democrat said, I like Kamala's momentum, but Trump's got the fundamentals, baby. That's what we like to see. And so you can see even Mark Halperin is talking about this. And we're seeing this dynamic yesterday when we saw the rank and file union members come out and endorse Trump through their votes. But even though the Teamsters didn't officially endorse anybody, we saw an interesting dynamic because they liked Biden over Trump when Biden was in the race, but now they like Trump over Kamala. So is that same trend, is that same pattern happening elsewhere around the fruited plain? Let's see what Mark says.
New Fox national poll. Let's take a look at that. If we have it, Harris up 2. Again, margin of error, national poll. We all know this debate about whether, Harris is doing better than Biden 20 versus Trump. I'm sorry, she's doing better than Biden 20 24 versus Trump. She's doing worse than Biden 20 versus Trump in these national polls and state polls. And she's doing worse than Clinton 16 versus Trump. So the question is this good enough or not? Particularly in a national poll that shows her up to 50-48 as in the Fox poll. Is that good enough or not? That's a big debate. Quinnipiac put out battleground state polls in the 3 Rust Belt states. If we have those, we'll put those up. Harris is up in Michigan and Pennsylvania. They're tied in Wisconsin. Curious thing is the Quinnipiac poll in general is a lot of pollsters not their favorite pollster, their favorite polls.
That has Harris up everywhere.
People close to the Harris campaign told me tonight that those polls just aren't accurate, that their own private data has the races in those states much closer.
All right, so you can see Halperin is sounding a little bit skeptical on some of those polls, but you can see some of them have Harris way up. And are those push polls or those reality? Seems like it is just a bunch of noise, to be honest. Here's another article. Could Harris' silence cost her the blue wall? Could she lose those in very important states like in Michigan? Kamala has been part of an administration that's poured more than $50 billion into the Rust Belt industry, but she's hardly even mentioning the spending. Instead, Harris and her surrogates are focusing on a care economy. What? I thought it was opportunity economy. What the heck? Policies to expand childcare, make housing more affordable, and so on. Biden is a car guy like I'm a car girl, said Dingell, a Democrat. So it's just natural for us to talk about cars. But she's learning about cars. You know, she's from California, but she still likes manufacturing, says this Democrat in coat mode. The Harris campaign did not comment directly on the policy shift, instead pointing to her new ad on the economy. Okay, and there's some evidence of a message shift that's working. Harris has cut into Trump's lead in the economy on national polls. Yeah, we'll see. And new polling for Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And then you've got the Fed who just cut interest rates. But the pivot is also raising concerns among some Democrats in the upper Midwest who worry she risks losing some of the working class voters that helped the party win in 20. That concern has been bolstered by other recent surveys that show Harris is losing non-college educated voters by a much wider margin than Biden did. The Teamsters also refused to endorse her because they like Trump better. The divide reflects the continuing transformation of the party, and others sound like they're getting nervous on it. And I think as we see, as more and more people realize who this woman is, the truth will come out and people will wake up to who she is in reality.